recording now here. So as I said, I'll be recording all of our sessions and be posting them on the website. So in case you ever have to miss one, it's not a big deal. You can always go back and review the recording. I'm also going to try to stagger our meeting times, one in the morning, afternoon, morning, afternoon, because we have a lot of adult students, a lot of part-time students, and they can't always make a morning meeting because they've got another class or they're at work. So by staggering the dates and times, hopefully we can get a few more people in more regularly. And it's worked pretty well in the past, so I think I'll continue that. I've got a schedule posted just for the first 5 or 6 days that we're meeting live. It's not every day. Like I say, it's probably going to be 2 or 3 times a week, and I'll spread those out a little bit. And excuse me. And I'll make a bigger schedule that takes us right to the end of the quarter as soon as I get a chance. But we've got something up there right now. Okay, so I just usually use this first session as a meet and greet and to hopefully get to know you a little bit better and to let you know what we're going to be doing in this class and just give you a brief overview of the progression of the class and Blackboard and where to find things. Have either of you taken an online course before through us? So I guess what I'm really asking, have you used the Blackboard system before? Okay, so that's great. You used the Blackboard system before, so you're relatively familiar with navigating the website and finding class materials and submitting work. That's great. Not everybody is, so if you'll just bear with me, I'm just going to do a very, very quick introduction to Blackboard. I know there's a tutorial online, but I'm going to do it specifically with my site just so you know where to find everything. And then after that, we'll just, we'll do some more general information about the course, and then we'll probably call it a day so that you can get to the other things that you've got to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. And if someone could just confirm for me that you are indeed seeing my Blackboard, that'd be great. Great. Okay, so this is our Blackboard classroom. This is the home and announcements page. Actually, that's a lie. This is the Start Here page. I usually put our home page as the Start Here page for the first week or so of the course, just to make sure people do all the Start Here activities, particularly if they've never done a course on Blackboard before. It can be a bit intimidating if you've never done an online course before. There seems like there's a lot of links and a lot of places to look for information. So I want to make sure that people don't get too intimidated by it. Just show you the main things that you need to know about accessing the information and handing things in and whatnot. And there's a couple of really good tutorials. So there's an intro video here that I made. Hopefully you've had a chance to go through that. It's not very long. I think it's maybe 15 or 16 minutes, and it just gives you a very brief overview and introduction. And also in here are what I consider the 2 most important documents in this course. We have a lot of assignments, and a lot of them are micro assignments. So they, take, maybe some of them take 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Some of them might even take you 3 or 4 minutes if you know your stuff. We have a lot of micro assignments, a lot of little programs we're making. And I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to keep yourself organized, keep track, have a checklist so that you don't miss anything. So I've got 2 documents here that I consider sort of the most important documents of the course. The first one says Q5. Don't worry about it. It's from last year. It hasn't changed. So if I click on this Q5 assignments list, this is every assignment in the course. It doesn't include the quizzes, the unit exams, and the final project, but it includes all of the little programs and the topics that we're going in and sort of what unit to find these in. So students often like to use this as a checklist. They either just print it off or it's a PDF, so just take a digital copy and use use a digital highlighter or something like that to keep track of what they've completed in the class. And it is in order, so these assignments should be done in this order basically from top to bottom, start of class to end of class. So that's a document that I think is really important. It shows you how many marks are assigned to each thing, and in general, you can determine the relative value with regard to your final mark by looking at that mark section. The way that assessment works nowadays is you don't just get an average of all your assignments. There's actually outcome areas. You might think of them as sort of like units, and they're all weighted differently, and that is indicated and broken out a bit more in my course outline, which is also available on the website. And so you can't just get an idea of what your mark is just averaging everything out. So I'm very good or very cognizant of that, and I like to update my assignment marks frequently. In a quarter system, we don't have time. You don't have time to wait for a week and a half or 2 weeks for me to mark something and get it back to you. We've got to move at a faster pace than that. So I pride myself in my ability and efforts to take your assignments and projects and whatnot in, get them assessed quickly, and then get them back to you. So you get your feedback that you can use moving forward, and also that your mark is relatively accurate as we move forward. At the beginning of a semester or quarter, I guess it is this year, don't spend too much time thinking about your mark or your final mark too early, right? Let's make sure that we get 4, 5, 6 assignments completed before you even consider what's my mark right now, because when you don't have many assignments handed in, your mark kind of fluctuates all over the place based on how well you did on this one, on those first few. So pay too much attention to your mark until you get a couple weeks into the course. That'll give you a better idea, and you can find all of that information in the My Grade section. I'm just going to go into student view, so this should ideally give me a bit closer look to what you will see. I've tried to trim down the navigation to just the bare essentials. So what we're looking at right now is the Start Here page. There's a Home and Announcements page, course calendar. This is the learning modules section, is where you're going to spend 95% of your time. That's where all the learning materials, all the tutorial videos, all the assignments, projects, everything that you need to succeed in this course is in that learning modules section. So that's where you're going to spend most of your time. You already found the virtual meeting space, so that's where we met today. And then I'll have a live session calendar up that includes some more dates after we get past, sort of this first couple weeks. So I've got the first couple weeks in here, and then I'll make a bigger calendar. It also shows you how to access. The sessions, which obviously you know how to do, but it also shows you how to access recordings if you happen to miss one, although I will be posting those in other areas as well. If you look at the My Grade section, this is where you can find out your grades on every assignment, and it'll give you a current grade, which is just kind of an ongoing total grade or final mark or whatever you want to call it. And these marks will bounce around a little bit. I think they're in order as long as you have it set to last activity. There's a couple different ways you can organize it, but I think they're pretty much in order. I see these ones aren't down here. Oh, no, maybe they are. And you're not going to see every assignment in the class in here. Some of the assignments I haven't made live yet, so things will be added to this list as we go along. So this is another way you can just keep track of your progress in the course. You don't want to use that assignment list check sheet. I mean, this is a place where you can tell if something's completed or if it's incomplete. And keep apprised of your grade. Most of my feedback is digital, so most of my feedback will either be written on whatever you submit, or there's a feedback box there that I'll give you some feedback on to help you continually improve your skills in this course. Teacher contact, course outline, help. Most people, frankly, don't use those. It's there, though, if you want it. I'll just quickly go through the home and announcements page. I recommend that you check this page daily. I will put in reminders for assignments, reminders for quizzes, reminders for reviews, reminders for live sessions. It's going to be the home page of the course after about a week or two once everybody's signed in and going. So it's just, this is where you should go the first, when you log into the class every day. Just make sure there's nothing new. I already kind of messed this up because I originally put this meeting at 10 and then I thought it was at 11 and I put it back to 10 again. So sorry about that, but obviously you found me. So. To do a lot or the what's new, they just check the announcements and then move on. Okay, back to the start page. I showed you the first most important document, and this is actually probably equally as important, the course calendar. This is a calendar that shows you every day from yesterday to the end of the course, which is November 5th, the last day of our quarter one. And what it shows you is a daily schedule of what you should be reading, what you should be researching, what you should be looking at, what you should be completing, as well as all the due dates. You probably noticed all the due dates are highlighted in yellow, so you quickly scan through, make sure that you're on pace to finish these things. It notes which module we're in. When I say modules, it's basically like Unit 1, Unit 2, Module 1, Module 2. And it should tell you what you should be working on, what's due, and you, in order to be successful in this class, need to stick to this calendar. Okay, we need to get through all of these things, and we need to do it in a quarter, not a semester. The number of hours we have in our classes is the same as it would be in physical school. It's about 100 hours. It's probably less. It's probably 90 hours. But instead of doing it from September to the end of January, because of COVID, we're doing them in quarters. And it means that we only have 45 days instead of the normal 90 to complete our work. So instead of working for a day on every class, you need to work for 2 hours every day in your class. Some people coding before and are able to complete the class at a faster rate. I encourage that. I often have every quarter, every quint, every semester, I have students that are really good at this or really interested in it and are moving through the content faster than the calendar. And that's a-okay. Everything will be open for you ahead of time. So if you were doing the assignments, if you're doing well and you feel like you're getting it, move ahead. Just keep going. Don't move ahead too quickly. I sometimes have students who try to just get everything done as quickly as they can, but they don't do a very good job on it. And I just tell them that you need to slow down. You can't keep moving ahead if you get or this class 2 weeks early, and that's fine. If you are doing a good job and you're understanding what you need to understand, you're getting from the course what you need, you can finish the course early if you wish. Just make sure that you do understand what's what's going on and that you are prepared at the end of the class to say move on to a computer science 30 or something in post-secondary if that's the route you choose to take. So this calendar is probably as important, well, it is as important as that assignments list. Most students have told me that they had the most success when they literally just printed this off on a printer. And if they had a little home office that they're working in or an area that they had in their bedroom that they usually do their online work from, they would just put it on the wall and then use a Sharpie and cross the days out. Or cross. It's have a question on any given day, you should, and the often is for tutorials if you use Blackboard. Every once in a while, tech tips if there's something. So let's get back to the course. Oh, by the way, calendar that I referred to and clicked on is also available. All the same material, so that's all good. Okay, so the meat of the course, 95% of your time plus PDF and a document, a Word doc. So if you want to take it in Word and use highlighter in Word or something, options there for you as well. So I'll update that. All Microsoft programs through MS 365 just using your, your regular student login, you'll have access to Word and PowerPoint and Excel and Access and basically anything from Microsoft. So you can use that in this class and in other classes. You also have, you're probably more aware of this, you also have access to all the Google Education Suite tools, Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Forms, that sort of thing. So that's available for you as well. I don't really care if you do stuff in Office or if you do them in Google Docs, or if you do them in some other word processor, the written assignments anyway. That doesn't really matter to me. And you can also, store stuff online through Dropbox, Google Drive, and OneDrive. You got lots of options there. These are PDFs that just show you, how to save things and how to retrieve them and whatnot. So what I consider just sort of helpful information, not just for this class, but for other classes. Then we get to our actual modules where the content from computer science starts. So I've got introductory activities in here, and you just got to click through them one by one. I've got a note here to go to start here if you haven't already done so. If you have, you go down to 1.2. There should be a Prezi, just an introduction to computer science, and then you'll see your first assignment, which is using a little bit about computer history, where we came from and how we got to, the rudimentary fundamental principles of computer science and programming. And that's just going to be a worksheet. We don't do many of those type of assignments in this class. I've provided you with Word documents. You can just type your answers in the Word documents. All of the answers are included in these videos. And, if you know this stuff because you're interested in the concepts, that's great. But I think a lot of people, people my age and younger, aren't really all that clear on how it all began and how old computers and the idea of using technology to compute and to handle tasks that formerly humans would handle, how old it actually is. It's significantly older than people think. So you just work through here, and you start at the top and you go to the bottom. Make sure that you do the learning before you try to attempt the assignments. If you skip right from here down to assignment 2 without doing the reading, you're not going to understand, or you're not going to have a clear idea as to how to do this. You're going to need to watch the videos. You're going to need to read the PowerPoints and materials that I've made for you in order to do the assignment. So if you do send me an email or do in a live session, say, I don't know how to do this, my first question is always going to be, did you watch the video? Did you read the information? And if you did and it doesn't make sense, that's a totally different thing. But you can't expect to understand an assignment or actively without doing the learning first. When it comes to assignments, this first assignment is something that you would either just need to draw on paper and take a picture of, or you could do it in Word using shapes. It's flowcharting, so you'll notice up here, I've used kind of a combination of technology and drawing to do it. Whatever form you want to hand it in is fine, but handing things in is really usually all done the same way. Most of the stuff that we're handing in this class, like 95% of it, is going to be, you're going to have to hand in actual files. So you're going to have to use this attach files section. And the vast majority of students just use the browse local files or browse cloud service. So if you're using Dropbox or OneDrive or Google Doc or G Drive or something like that, and you have stuff saved there, you can link directly to it through this. I would say probably 90% of students just save their files on their computer, and then they go to the browse files, and then they get the little window, and then they find the file they want to hand in, and they hit open. One thing students don't always understand is that they can hand in more than one file at once, either by, you can hold down the control key while you're clicking and just click as many as you want and hit open, and you'll notice it'll add all 4 of them down here. Another way you can do that is if you go to browse for local files, and you can do it one at a time. So if I click that and open it, it'll add it to the list of things to hand in, and then I can go back in and do it again, and it'll add it to the bottom. So you can do it one at a time. You can do it multiple. You can do multiple files at the same time by holding down Control and clicking. One thing that students often mistake is they do that and then they think the assignment's handed in. That's just basically telling, what I just did there is basically telling the system that I want to hand in more than one file, but it hasn't actually handed it in yet. You have to go down here and hit submit in order for those things to be submitted. And Can you still hear me? It looks like my internet went down for a second there. Can you hear and see me, Michael? Sadika? Did it just go down for just a quick second there, or was it down for an extended period of time? Relatively quickly. So what I've got on the screen here is okay. How to hand in multiple files. So you've got your multiple files. A quick message there and let me know, and I'll fix that, or I'll go over it again. I have these 3 files attached to this assignment that I'm going to hand in. I'm going to click the submit button. And looks like our internet's a little wonky this morning. And what happens then is you get the success message at the top, and it's time. You'll see an attempt over here. So nothing will ever get lost. As soon as you've handed something in, I get a message, you get a message. You can change your notifications to let you know. Hey, there's a picture of me after my huge fantasy baseball win. You'll know that you've handed something in because you'll see this message. I'll see it. It'll be in my grade bin for me to mark. And then if you go to your My Grade section, it'll also show you that you've made an attempt. So right here where it says last activity, you notice it says submitted. So you'll know when and what you've submitted. And if you see this little thing, it just means that it's handed in and I haven't graded it yet. So that's something you can just ignore. If you see the little exclamation point, the little yellow thing there, it just means it's good. I handed it in and I need to get back to you with a mark and some feedback. So that's how you navigate through the course, right? Just learning modules every day. Which module are you on? Which assignment are you on? And hand things in. A lot of assignments, for instance, let's go down to assignment 4. A lot of assignments require you to hand in multiple files, so you can do what I just did and sort of just attach them all. So our internet is just hardware in here. Hopefully that'll take care of the issue. Okay, that should be better. All I was saying was you can zip files up if you want, if you're familiar with that process. Google it if you don't know how to zip a file, and create one file with it. Therefore, you only have to hand in one file, and then I can unzip it. And what it does when it unzips it is it creates, it turns it back to a folder state, and then all 4 or 5 or 6 of your files will be in there. So I'm okay either way. You can hand in 6 files, or you can zip them up and hand in one zipped folder. It doesn't matter to me. Whatever works easiest for you. It's just another option. So this is an example of an assignment here where I want you to fix some files in Scratch, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 files. You can hand all 5 in if you want, or you can just zip them up into one folder and hand in that. That's fine. Read the assignments carefully, please. I'd say probably half the questions I get, either email or in live session, it's explained right in the assignment. The student just didn't read it, or didn't read it very carefully, or kind of just skimmed through it. And make sure you read the assignments. I give a lot of detail, and that can be a bit inundating at points. A lot of text, a lot of pictures and whatnot, but it also, most of the time it takes you right through the assignment and lets you know exactly what you need to know. So please, before you get panicked or concerned about an assignment not making sense, please make sure that you've read it all very carefully. So that was just sort of randomly clicking into module 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the final project information. These are in order, so you should start in 1, should go to 2, should go to 3, and the course calendar takes you through all of that stuff. So you should be okay. I think it's quite a logical sequence. Okay, now I'd like to go through a bit more of and where we're ending up. But before I do that, are there any questions about anything that I've gone through so far? You still hear me? Still see me? Am I frozen? Can you see me? Okay, you can't see me. Okay, so everybody's okay so far? Okay, so here's the 5 or 7 minutes progression of the course. What I like to do in this course is I like to do a little history, a little bit of an overview on hardware, software, etc. And then you move into programming. This is essentially a programming class. We spend most of our time on programming, and in doing so, you develop a lot of critical thinking skills, a lot of problem solving skills and research skills, and these are things that are going to benefit you in the real world. There's little value in the world now for people who can memorize a bunch of information and spit it back out. That's what we have. That's what we have the internet. That's what we have databases of information for. The focus has shifted in industry and technology and education to not retaining information, but using information and critical thinking to solve problems. That's what's of value in the world. Okay, if you need to memorize something for your job, you will just memorize it by sheer repetition of whatever it is you're doing. But that's not a particularly important skill. What is important is for someone to be able to give you a problem and for you to be able to admit and say, I don't know how to do this, but I'm confident in my ability to find the answer or to create a solution to whatever problem it is. And you access the wealth of information in your colleagues, in written text, and largely on the internet to solve those problems. And that's where the value becomes. It comes not necessarily knowing how to solve something, or that's great if you do, but the ability to quickly use the resources at your disposal and critical thinking to solve problems. That's where value is in society now, whether we're talking about industry or education or politics. That's where value is right now, and that's something that this course should train into you. A lot of it's independent. Okay, I teach this course a little differently online than I would if it was in a physical classroom, but it does, it is the way that a lot of people, particularly in software engineering, work. They work in front of monitors. They use a lot of external information and resources on the web. A lot of programming is in teams and whatnot. So they'll ask their team, or they'll ask somebody that has some experience with this, and you can do all of those things in an online environment. You have access to all of these resources. So a lot of our course is going to be programming. I give you a problem. I ask for a certain result or a certain output, and then you're responsible for taking what you know or learning what you need to know to give me that result. And I like, because it's an introductory class. It's a grade 11 class, and it's a science. It's actually a core science, so it is it's a reasonably challenging class, and I won't apologize for that. It's in the same realm as physical science 20 and all the other science classes. It's an elective, but it's also a hard science. So I like to start, because it's an introductory course, there is no computer science 10. I like to start really in a visual environment, and I chose Scratch as my visual environment. It's typically used for elementary students and secondary students who've never programmed before, to give you an idea of how the 5 basic structures of programming work. And it does it in a visual environment where you can kind of drag and drop things. And I think a lot of you have probably used it before at one of your schools, or maybe a science camp or something like that. It is drag and drop, so it's not the syntax kind of matrix computer hacker stuff that you typically see on TV. But it does a very good job of introducing and giving you a little practice with what the five basic concepts or fundamental principles of computer programming are. And we're going to use these no matter what language or program we use to do our problem solving. We're going to use these 5 things in each one of them all the time. And it doesn't matter what programming languages you're talking about. If you talk about Java or C or C# or any of the mobile languages, you're going to see all of these principles in play all the time. They don't change. They're kind of like the backbone and the foundation of programming and problem solving. And they are giving input to a computer and getting output from a computer, using variables to store and access data, and lists to store data, and databases to store data, looping, which means repeating events, because a program that just does one thing once is of limited value, whereas if it can take new information and continue to do, tasks in a repetitive manner, then it's actually useful. Conditionals, which is just kind of a fancy way of saying decision making. Like you know that a user could type in two different answers, and you have to be able to set your program up to prepare for what do I do if they type in yes, what do I do if they type in no. You have to be able to have considerable decision making processes to handle that type of problem. And then functions, and functions are basically just custom little chunks of code that you will reuse in your program, so that you don't have so instead of having a really long program, you can have a much more condensed program. So things that are often repeated in your program or in whatever system you're using, you're going to create these little functions and you're going to save them in a library so that you can access them. You don't have to repeat the process of building it every time. So let's say you're building a program that computes tax for a purchase. There's no sense every time you need to figure out the tax for something, say you've got 10 projects that require you to find tax, there's no sense in you reprogramming that 10 times. You just do it once, and then you can use it as many times as you want. So it's basically like building a library for yourself. So we start with Scratch, which is a very visual environment, very drag and drop, and it gives you a really good overview of how to use these 5 principles. And then we shift to something that's kind of like half visual and half syntax. And when I say syntax, I just mean typing in the words and typing in the actual code. And I use a program called Reborg the Robot for that. Excellent program that you still get a lot of output in a visual environment. The robot moves around and does stuff, so you can see output based on what you've typed in. But there's also code that you need to type in. So instead of a drag and drop interface, now you're actually typing in code. It's simplified code, but it's code nonetheless. So you kind of got a half and half there. And then the biggest part of our class, halfway point onward, is a language called Python, which is usually the language that any post-secondary intro to computer science class will start with. It's a very simple, stripped-down language, but it's also very powerful, and it's become one of the most popular programming languages in the world. Everybody uses it. I mean, no huge company uses just one programming languages. They use a language that suits whatever it is they're trying to do, whether they're trying to do web applications or storing information or whatnot. But Google would not just use one programming language. There would be, there would be all sorts of different programming languages used within the Google complex for all sorts of different things. So Python is one that's quite simple. It's quite easy to learn, and it's very powerful and portable. So that's the one I'm going to use for this class. And if you plan to do any computer science in a post-secondary institution, a college, tech school, university, you're going to see Python again. And if you've got this course, you're definitely going to have a leg up on a lot of students that didn't learn anything about Python. So Python is the 4th module. And that's very syntax sensitive and syntax heavy. So now we're completely away from the drag and drop, and we're completely away from the sort of visual cartoony thing moving around to show your output. It's mostly text based at this point, and it's information heavy, number heavy. And it's not particularly difficult math, but it's logic. So you need to program for a multitude of situations. And your program needs to reflect that, and you need to solve a lot of problems, and you need to use math, but you don't need to use complex math. You just have to use basic math properly, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and something called modulus, which we'll learn a bit more about. So don't be too intimidated by the numbers in the math. The math itself is not particularly difficult. It's the problem solving that you use the math for that'll be more challenging. And then finally, we've got a final project, which is basically my way of saying, we've done the stuff that I want to do. But it might not line up with what you enjoy using technology for, or building technology for. So it's as wide open as I can make it. If you want to build a game, you build the game. If you want to do something with hardware, you do something with hardware. You want to make a website or some web application or mobile apps or whatever. I leave that as wide open as I can. I just ask that you maybe contact me ahead of time, probably starting in week 4 or 5 or so, just to give you an idea of what you're thinking about, and I can give you some guidance on whether or not that's maybe not ambitious enough, or maybe it's a little bit too much to take on. But in general, I let people do what they want for that, and you should be putting about I'm going to say 10 to 15 hours into that project. So it should, you don't want to hand something in that took you 35 minutes, and you don't want to tackle something that's going to take you 200 hours unless you plan to do it well after this class is over. So that's the course in a nutshell. I think it's very straightforward and everything's laid out in quite an organized manner, but I'm always here for help. In an online environment, email is the best way to reach me. I will respond to it as quickly as possible. I tend to be a very responsive person, so if you send me an email one day, I will try to get back to you that same day, and usually can. If you send me something after work hours, I have a family, so I will be occupied with them in the evenings. But if I get some time to sit down, maybe you get an answer that same night. Maybe it has to wait till the morning. But I'm generally pretty responsive, and email's the best way to reach me. With regard to assignments, this is really important. 95% of the assignments in this course, the programs, you can resubmit after I give you feedback. So if you get 4 out of 5 on it, you made a little mistake, I gave you feedback on that mistake, you can just redo it and hand it in and get 5 out of 5. The only thing that is not the deal for is the quizzes. Generally, you have 2 or 3 attempts at, so you actually do kind of get a redo on those. The 4th quiz, the final quiz in the Scratch unit, is only 1 attempt, so be aware of that. Your Python unit exams are the 2 big unit exams in the course, and those cannot be submitted late. Those cannot be redone. And I'm very strict on those deadlines. No ifs, ands, or buts. And the reason is I open that exam for about a week. So you have an entire week to complete that exam. So if you leave it to the last second and you don't get it handed in, it's not because you didn't have the opportunity. You should have tons of time to complete the exam. And so, the deadline is at midnight of whatever night that is. And if I don't get it in, then you don't get a mark for it. And that's on you. And I think that's reasonable given the amount of time that things are open for. All the exams, all the programs, all the quizzes are all open book. And I want to be very clear about this because I have had some problems with this in the past. Open book means that you can use any of the materials that we have on our classroom. You can also use materials that you find on the web. What I will not tolerate is copying, pasting people's code from the web, because you're not learning anything, you're just stealing somebody else's work. Say this strongly. Have to do it at least once a semester. It's not just copy paste. It's basically taking somebody else's code structure and changing a few variable names, changing a few words, and hoping I won't notice. It doesn't work, okay? It's very easy for me to find out if you copied and pasted code. If you are inspired by work or structures that other people have used, that's fine. It's okay to use the general idea and build your own code. It's not okay to just take somebody's work and change a few words. And I think you'd agree that's the same in any other class. If you were doing an English class and you were asked to write an essay on Tom Sawyer, and you went and copied somebody else's essay, and then you just changed a few names around and maybe took a paragraph out or changed a sentence or two, that's still plagiarism. It's still copying. It still shows a lack of academic integrity, and it's something that we need to deal with. And I don't want to do it. It's uncomfortable for me. It's uncomfortable for you. It's uncomfortable for your parent who needs to be contacted, or guardian. It's uncomfortable for our principal because we have to bring them into the fold. It's not worth it, okay? If you're feeling panicked, and students generally don't plan to cheat in my experience, they leave something too late, they make mistakes, and then they get panicked, and they gotta hand something in, and they got panicked. If you're panicking, you email me, we work through it, okay? I'm a good, I like to think I'm a pretty easygoing person, and I'm a human being, I understand, I have children myself, and I've been teaching for a long time. I will help you out, okay? If you're panicking, we will work something out, as long as it's not a I'm panicking every assignment kind of thing, which might indicate sort of a bigger issue. Don't give in to the temptation to copy and paste something. It's just, you'll get caught, and then it's just a lot of work for us and a lot of uncomfortableness, and it doesn't help you, right? And yeah, let's be honest. If you get caught cheating in school, it's a bad thing, but it's not going to ruin your entire life. As you get older, it gets, the penalties for dishonesty or lack of integrity, for lack of a better word, are significantly more punitive. And I'll give you an example. So in university, if you get caught cheating, they're gonna give you a 0. They're going to take the $500 or $600 or $700 you spent for the course and not refund it. If you get caught more than once, sometimes even just once. You could get expelled from the university. It goes on a permanent record that any other university you apply for will see that. So, you know, we're talking about kind of big stakes. If you do it in the real world, you're working in industry and you're a programmer or an engineer and you steal somebody else's idea, you can be sued, you can, you know, you'd be fired, you can, all sorts of really, really bad things that can really negatively impact your life. So if you're a person who's been known to, and I know I'm dealing with a very small minority of people here, but if you're a person that's been known to kind of copy and paste some stuff in the past, you should be aware that even if you are getting away with it now, if you get into the habit, the stakes get a lot higher as you get older, and it can really impact you negatively in your life. So, you know, fair warning. I know 98% of students have a lot of integrity and do what they're supposed to do and ask for help when they need it. And that's great. I'm just saying, for those of you who maybe are a little behind the curve on that, all right, I think that's 45 minutes, give or take. I think we went through a lot of stuff today, all of it, you know, introductory. I'm here to answer any questions, but if things are more or less making sense, we can sign off, and I think we're meeting again on Friday. And then just keep chipping away at that initial material, and you know, if you need to do extra research outside of the videos that you could feel free to use a Stack Overflow or any other website that you feel helps you learn the skills and problem solving strengths that you need for the course. And I'm always here. I'm only an email away, and I encourage you to utilize all the resources at your disposal, because that problem solving and critical thinking and the ability to use every resource, that's what's going to help make you successful at a job in this industry and in, you know, academics and life in general. Problems always exist, so you're going to have to use those problem solving and critical thinking skills in your life. Yes, Michael, but you can do it in a very simple way. You don't necessarily have to use a, sorry, the question was, do I have to define our variables? I have to define my variable, and I think, you know, what Michael's referring to is, say, do I have to say equals 5? To some extent, yes, you do. I've recommended variable names there. You don't have to use a specific language, but keeping track of a number, and you have to store a number in order to make this flowchart kind of work logically, then yes, you would say num equals 0 if that's what it starts at, and then I can read that and I know, okay, they've created even with the hardware internet going down often. Michael, did you get that answer? No. Okay. Yes, you do need to use variables. You could pretty much use them in plain English. And the video that I've got that shows an example of how to create a flowchart has several variables in it. So if you follow that same sort of idea in building your own, you'll be on the right track. So you do need to have variables. You don't have to have them in a specific language syntax like Java or Python. Just kind of plain English is okay. Num equals 0. Sum equals num plus 1 or something like that. So yes, but it can be in plain English, and the videos should help you with that process. Okay, I think I'm going to sign off here before our internet gets even worse. But thanks for coming today, and stay in touch. And if there's any questions, I'll just wait a couple seconds here, and if not, we'll sign off until Friday, I guess. Thank you. It's nice to meet you. Bye, Sadika. All right, take care.